Hello, I'm Gandalf. You might remember me from the sagas of Middle-earth, with all that running around and questing-type stuff. It might surprise you to know that listening to the Slick podcast while smoking my pipe really relaxes me. Slick Podcast, keeping it real and always keeping it groovy.
You have tuned in for a Slick Podcast. I'm here to seek the truth. Live from Scotland around the UK. The one and only Slick Podcast. Enjoy the show. Can I ask important questions? No matter how bizarre the truth might be. Tune in for Slick Podcast, keeping it real, keeping it groovy.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, or a very good day to you when and wherever you're listening from. And a very warm welcome to the show. I'm your host, Simon Laurie King. Coming up on today's show, my guest is Michelle Dewitt, founder of the support group and organisation Unbreakable Faith. Michelle is the author of her own short but very telling autobiography titled I've Been There. In this book, Michelle explains the trauma that, as a young girl, she endured at the hands of trusted family members. This wickedness reached a crescendo on one terrifying afternoon at her grandmother's house, and thus her childhood ended after being brutally raped at just 14 years old. This event set Michelle on a path of hopelessness and self-loathing, as so often happens when vile creatures defile their innocent victims. But thanks to the intervention of three sisters bringing Michelle into the light and very much out of that dark, guilt-ridden place, she rediscovered her faith. Faith in humanity, faith in God, and more importantly, faith in herself. And this became beautiful, as it is now unbreakable. Michelle now has turned the negative experiences into meaningful communication tools that enable her and the other counsellors to help children and young adults that have been themselves victims of abuse or trafficking. The subject matter of today's show is of a very sensitive nature, but this conversation needs and will happen. So without further delay, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Michelle Dewitt to the show.
So sweet and beautiful. Thank you.
Let's get the ball rolling on this one. I've read your book titled I've Been There. It's not the longest book by any means, but exactly long enough to tell the reader I'm not going to use the word story because I would in no way insult or categorize it in such. It's a short autobiographical of your very traumatic transition from childhood to young adult and the time briefly written about thereafter up until relatively recently, including the passing of your much beloved mother. Your book told me without any need of added drama of the wickedness put upon you at such a young age. Your book spoke about the precious gift of childhood that was suddenly and brutally stolen away from you and a horrifying, cold and unjust adulthood left in its place. Reading this book left me extremely shocked in places and very, very angry in others. This account of your young life left me feeling very sad indeed and left me wanting a wrathful vengeance on your behalf. But having completed this account, I know you are not about that. And in my opinion, completely justified payback. In fact, your book at its conclusion left me in no doubt that you are a powerful woman of unbreakable faith, to coin a phrase. And having read this book, of this, I have absolutely no doubt. So let's start off by you telling us how you started the organisation Unbreakable Faith, Inc.
Well, again, thank you for having me on the show. I came up with the name many, many years ago. I was actually getting my car tag. And while getting my car tag, it just came to mind, UNBRK FTH. And so that's my tag. It was like, okay, so down the line, I didn't know the setup that God had for me. And my friend said, you have a story to tell. And she actually published books. And she said, why don't you tell a story about what's going on, what has happened, I'll say, in your life. While I was thinking in my head, I am not a author. I'm not none of that, no journal, nothing. I didn't think of anything like that. And then she said, you always tell your story to people on the side when you meet them and you know things are happening or whatever. She said, but you need to put it in a book. And so she told me to go home, think about what I could do and how I would label it. And I said, you know what? Unbreakable faith, because that's what I have. Unbreakable faith. And so that's how I came up with the name. I think God just put it in place years ago. I mean, like over 10 years ago with the name Unbreakable Faith. And I've always had that on my tag. And so that's how it came about.
Unbreakable Faith is an organisation set up by you that helps young children and young adults find their way to peace, trusting again and regaining a sense of normality after, in some cases, a very traumatic life event. Start by telling us what exactly it is that you do for these young people and where they come from.
What I do with the with the youth and the young adults, so how I started this organization is by working with youth in the school system. I worked in the school system for 20 years, and I've always loved talking to the youth and the young adults when I go out to different events, parties, and whatnot. And I noticed that I always would gravitate to the ones that were standoffish or a little different, or not their face, their attire, their behavior with their movement. I will always pick those to talk with the most, because I knew as a child, which I know we'll probably get into later, I knew as a child that I was a person that was very vulnerable and very shy. So I actually have sessions talking to the youth in regards to date violence, sexual abuse, trauma. Those are the issues that we deal with and talk with our youth about in conversations, in conferences, in one-on-one settings. So that's basically how I operate with my organization.
Having read your book, you could certainly relate to some of these children and young adults, what they've been through, that absolutely no one should have done. Tell us, I recommend my readers to read your book. It's not bedtime reading. It's not by the pool reading, but it certainly is a really, really good view into the window of the way that you were thrust into adulthood. And looking at your organization, I would recommend people to read this book to learn about you. So draw some parallels with these young children, these young adults coming to your organization. Tell us a little bit about your early years. I keep telling people about the way you were rudely thrust into adulthood from being an innocent child of 14 years old. Just paint the picture for us.
Okay. So when I was a child, starting at the age of 3, I was molested. I wasn't molested by anyone outside of my family. A lot of times people get the misconception that it's not in the family, when in fact it's actually reversed. It is a lot of times in the family. So at the age of 3, I was molested by 2 of my uncles. The molestation continued until I was about 6, and then another uncle got involved. On my mother's side, 2 uncles that molested me were on my dad's side. Another uncle came in and I was molested by him on my mother's side, and another uncle. Being a child growing up, you are told to pay attention to adults, listen to adults. Adults are not going to lead you wrong. That's what I was told, to respect my elders. Well, in doing so, it really tore me apart, because now I have these emotions as a little child, and you already know that children are developing in different areas of their life. So here it is, I have no clue as to whether this is right or wrong because my parents never talked about being touched inappropriately. It was always the strict rule in our house to listen to your elders and do what they say. Even though I felt uncomfortable in this situation, I didn't say anything, or I thought that I would get in trouble for combating against that. So at the age of 14, another uncle on my dad's side, he raped me. And when he raped me, my grandmother was in the kitchen cooking cornbread, and she heard the scuffle between us in the bedroom. And she opened the door and she closed it back. She seen what my uncle was doing and she closed the door back. So now I'm in my teens. The other uncles, the first two, they were not molesting me anymore. The other uncle on my mom's side, it was occasionally, every now and then he would be drunk and he would ask me to do something, or he would want to do something with me as fondling or whatever. But at the age of 14, I was just like broken because my grandmother saw it. And, you know, growing up as a child, you love your grandparents. You love them. You love the cooking. You love the humming in the house. And so that was my getaway from my home, because my home was an abusive home. My daddy was physically and a verbally abusive father. And so with that, I really didn't have any trust in any adults. I shut down completely. I did not, in my book, I explained the process of what I went through with my mother after finding out. I told them about what happened. So that's why my mindset is clinging always to our youth and our young adults. I want to know what's in your mind, what's going on, how did you get here? I'm always thinking in that arena when I talk to the youth. And when I have those sessions with them, I sit down and I ask them questions, and I don't come out and say them. I write them down on a sheet of paper and I tell them, really think. Think before you write. It's fine. No one else is going to read what you're writing. I ask questions such as, how do you feel today? Write that down. I ask them a question, how do you feel about life? I ask them the question, how do you feel in your environment, in your home? How about school? How do you handle social media? So I use light questions like that, and we open up with conversation from there. But yes, my story in my book, it goes from tragic pain to victory and glory.
Tell me about your faith, because it is very important to you. Having read the book and researched about it, your faith is extremely important to you. At a young age, did you have this faith? Is that what carried you through to this point, or is it something that you found or it found you?
So I always went to church with my grandmothers. I didn't always like church, okay? I would like sit there like, oh my God, I want to go home. But as I grew into, wait, let me say this before I go there. My riding on the van, I have a picture of myself riding on a church van on the way to church, and all these old people are on the van with mints and all other kind of stuff, and they're talking junk about everybody else. And when they got to church, it was like nothing was said. Like they just transitioned to holy mode, and I was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't want to be bothered with church. But in the midst of all the pain and whatnot, I found God. At the age of 16, because of what I went through, I gave birth to my son. I got pregnant, being out in the street, being very promiscuous. I was just looking for love. I wanted someone to show me the love. So I thought that sleeping with males and females, that I would get the love and support that I needed, that I was so desperately yearning for. I tried to commit suicide at age 16. I gave birth to my son. I did not want him, and I was confused about life and being a young teenage mother. It was just a lot. Like you said, being thrown into adulthood. And so one day I tried to do that. I went to the hospital, and I got back home from the hospital, and 3 ladies knocked at my door, and I'm just like, I don't want to be bothered. And my mom was upstairs. I was living with my mom, and I opened the door, and the things that they introduced me to in the Word of God really changed my life that day. It really made a difference, because here it is. They were telling me that there is a God that loves you no matter what you've been through. And that pierced my heart. I said, wow, this is a different way, a different view of looking at me. Not the people around me, but me. He looking for me. He wants me. I'm a mess. And they explained to me everything that day. I will never, ever forget those 3 ladies. In fact, I have stayed in touch with those ladies for quite some time. One of them passed away last year, but the other 2 are still living, and they were all sisters. And that church, I still go and visit every now and then, because I will never, ever forget the day that God said, come on, I got you. That day was beautiful, and I'll never forget it. My passion is to allow youth and young adults to feel that. I do not go into religion when I talk to the youth, because I respect everyone's religion. I respect where you are in your life. I don't go into that, but I have compassion in my heart because of where He brought me from. And I want to share that with them, and they can feel that when they talk with me. I have never spoken to a youth and they said, you don't understand me. Not one time have I ever spoken to a youth and get that response. Now, I know that I am not the person that they see. I know that they see the spirit that's within me.
Having read your book and listened to your story, read your story and spoken to you, I wouldn't have said that. I would have said that you had so much trauma at such a young age. I didn't remember that it had been since 3, or maybe you hadn't mentioned that, but I knew the terrible, terrible time you had when you were age 14, but I wouldn't say promiscuous. I mean, had you had someone like yourself, apart from these 3 ladies, counselling before you met them? It's almost like you're saying, oh, I was promiscuous and I was this and I was a bad person, but you've been through a really, really bad time. Had you had any counselling that was meaningful at all?
Oh my gosh, no. Oh, no.
Because Michelle was saying you were promiscuous. No, if you'd had a really perfect childhood, I didn't have a bad childhood, and it certainly wasn't anywhere like you had to endure. Yeah, good choice of words, Simon. That wasn't, like you would endure. But so if I was, I was getting drunk when I was a teenager. It's different, boys. I get that, but I was getting, and I was probably a little bit, too drunk and a little bit not really responsible. But you need to really reword that. I wouldn't say you were promiscuous. You were, from 46, that was 2 years after you were raped. Sorry, but no, I would say that's not being promiscuous. I would say you're still going through a horrible ordeal. Or am I being unfair about that?
No, you're not. I understand what you're saying. But I really did run the streets, and I ran the streets. Yeah. I wasn't drugs.
Mm-hmm. Understandable though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Understandable though. You've seen a wicked side of life, the way, the people that were set to protect you. Above all costs, above all everything, to set an example of what it is to be human, to be alive. That very precious gift of childhood was snatched away by, I shouldn't say wicked people, but I've said it anyway, wicked people.
No, so you're fine. Yeah, they were just that.
Was there any forgiveness? People. Is there any forgiveness in your heart? Because I know I've read your book, and
you know, there is no bad negative towards these people. And I haven't been there. You have, and that's the title of your book. I don't understand how you can not put that in your book. Talk to me about that. Is there a forgiveness? Can you?
Yes. When I accepted the Lord into my life, one of the things that the Bible says is that you can't have hatred in your heart. And although I went through hell in my house and a lot of malice and trauma in my home, although I went through all of that, I still learned from the Word of God that you can't walk around with hatred in your heart. It's not going to do anything. It takes too much energy. It takes too much of your time. And so once I read and learned, like I said, I had a good group of people that came around me. I didn't get the counseling at all that I would recommend to everybody I talk to today, that they really need to be involved in getting counseling. But I do not have any type of hatred in my heart for anyone. I am a very lovable young lady. Now, have I seen my uncle since this traumatic event? Yes. I can honestly say that with seeing them, I don't feel any type of way but sorry for them, because they had to have something going on in their life prior to cause them to do what they did. None of my uncles are in a healthy place. None of them that touch me and rape me. None of them. All of them are dealing with all types of illnesses. And I guess that's kind of like karma, some would say. But I say, the Bible tells us, touch not and do not do anything to his people, or you will receive the backlash from him. And so he's taking care of all that. No, I don't hate anybody. And yes, I have forgiven them, because I have to forgive them. I I would be still stuck in my head if I didn't forgive them. I would still always walk around and feel a certain type of way in certain environments and whatnot because of the trauma that I went through. But no, I don't. I feel sorry for them. One did die, that molested me. He did die. And on his deathbed, he told me he hated me. And I told him, I said, you know what? I forgive you and I love you. And so by the time I got up the road, the hospital called and said he was dead. And I said, do what you want with the body.
Have your other uncles asked for your forgiveness, or did they pretend it didn't happen?
Up until this day, they have not. When my book was published and one of my aunts read the book, she was flabbergasted about what I put in the book. No, none of them have apologized. I have one uncle that asked me if he could put me in his will. And I'm like, is this the way that he's apologizing to me after all these years? Dude, okay.
What do the children and the young adults say? I mean, I'm guessing you'll have to relate some of your story so they open up to you. What do they say when they hear about what you've gone through? I mean, they'll probably go through the similar or worse, but what do they say? Are they in shock when you tell them, or they're kind of nodding and they understand?
They're shocked. They look at me and say, "Nuh-uh, that can't be. No, for real though." So you gotta remember, I'm talking to a group of teens and young adults, so their expressions are all over the place. Some are pissed off and mad and want to fight. Where they at? What did you do? I know you did stuff. No, I did not. I didn't. And the young ladies are like, I can't believe it. And they feel like a sigh of relief when I talk to the young ladies, because I've hit a spot that they can relate with. And they're like, yeah, that's how I felt. Yeah. The guys, when I talk to the guys, I love talking with the guys, because they're the ones, I love to see the expressions, but then I let them know that this is not only a female thing, it's not only a black thing, a white thing, it's not. And I explain that to them. And talking with the males is funny to me. I love it, but I did have one youth that came to me. I went into the juvenile justice system, and I went there once a week to talk to the young men that were there. And this one particular one, he told me that he was molested by his uncle. And we were talking on the subject about recognizing predators and those in our families. That was the subject, and I had them watch a video. And they were so hot, but this one particular one, when he came to me, my heart was just broken, because now you're in the juvenile justice system, and a lot of your behavior has come from you holding it within your heart. And I really did feel sorry for him. I did let the staff know what he shared with me so that he could get into counseling immediately.
Do you come across people that approach you that have approached nobody else? So this abuse is still going on. And if so, how do you deal with that?
No, when someone comes to me and they let me know that happens, if they are a youth, yes, I involve the authorities. I actually have a counselor that is a pro bono counselor, I guess you would say, because she doesn't mind coming alongside me and speaking with the youth. And if she sees that there is an area that there needs to be authorities involved because that child is still in the household, yes, we do. We make sure that that process is carried out. I would never, ever want a child to go through the hell and malice that I went through. So we make sure that we do the proper steps in getting them out of the home. If it's a young adult and they're about 20 or 23, somewhere along in there, I really encourage them to go through counseling. And they'll say, when I have come across several that have said, I've never told anyone, I've never shared this, don't tell it. They really felt bad about it. And the males is don't tell it because I don't want people to think that I'm gay. With the females, don't tell it because I'm in this spotlight and I don't want anyone to look at me differently. So yeah, it depends on where we are and as far as our relationships that I have with them. Depending on where we are, I'll go from there.
So you're saying these girls and guys would rather not tell anybody else about it because they don't want to cause any more trouble. You said they don't want to look bad, but they don't want to cause any more trouble. Are they that affected that they feel they're kind of, I'm missing the point surely, but they're almost missing the point that this wicked act has happened or happening to them, yet they're not wanting to cause trouble. I'm trying to get my head around that. Explain that to me. Why would they not want to have this thing blow up?
The same reason that I didn't as a child. You're already dealing with so much hatred in the world today. So with all that happening in their lives, they're trying to make a balance. They want to be known. They want to be popular. And if that comes out, that means no friends, no relationship. They're going to be looked at totally different. They feel like if they shared that with anyone, that they would probably say, okay, well, you know what? I don't want to be around you. They'll probably get talked about. All that comes into a youth and young adult's head because they haven't processed life in the first place. They don't, just like you mentioned earlier, they have no idea which direction to go because of the trauma that's now in their mind. So they're in denial. They pack it away in a little suitcase in the back of their brain and said, I don't know anything about that anymore. That was just something bad. I'm going to run away from it. I'm not going to deal with it. And that's what they are.
We will be right back after this message.
Hi, I'm Morgan. Have you heard of foodtoware.com? Those crazy guys are given 25% off all chicken shoes and bacon hats. Use the promo code SlickPodcast21 to get a huge 5% off all salad t-shirts and vegetable hoodies. Foodtowear.com. Wear them, cook them, eat them. Groovy.
Sleep Podcast. The Sleep Podcast. Yeah, it's a Sleep Podcast. Truly unforgettable topic. This is Sleep Podcast.
But I would say as well, if I knew someone had been abused and they were a victim survivor, they certainly wouldn't be, they would probably be high in my esteem, not low in my esteem, certainly not the subject of a joke. I was just struggling. Thank you for explaining that to me. I was just struggling to think why they would not want any more focus. So just define child trafficking. I hear this expression, child abuse, get that. It's a horrible, horrible thing. What's child trafficking? Is that literally dealing in children?
Yes, child trafficking, it starts with the grooming process. Predators actually groom the children to see if their environment is chaotic, abusive, or if they have the wholesome family. And when I say wholesome, I mean mom is involved in the activities with the child. If it's a single parent home, she has a big support system. If it is a home with mother and father, are they really involved in the child's life? Predators poke at them. They do a lot of that on social media now. They ask questions, and our young people, sometimes they get so caught up in the act of having a certain number of people on their social media sites, and they get excited about the responses that they respond so quickly. And in their mindset, again, with the development of getting attention, they're responding to predators with whatever questions they're asking, such as, are you going to the mall today? Let's hook up. So what they do, they start off with talking with them in a light manner. And these predators could be male or female. And some of them look just like a youth. I mean, really, someone you would want to hang out with, truthfully. And if it's a home that's a wholesome home, they back up. If it's a single parent home and this parent has a great support system, they don't bother with them. But the ones that they talk to are those who are very shy. And if the home seems like it's not stable, they become the friend, the older friend that I can speak to when things are not right in my house. I can go to them. Once they start that process and get it going, they meet with the child a couple of times. And then once they meet with the child and get the child off by themselves, they will snatch that child and take that child and start going on the street with them, letting them know that they're going to have sex with people. They actually put them on drugs sometimes. They get on drugs before they're having sex with the people, and they're making good money. They're making $500 a child each time they have sex. They put them in a hotel, and all the hotels are not beautiful and luxurious hotels. They're not. They're sometimes backdoor hotels, nasty, dirty, roaches and flies. And they have a list that they go by. Some predators, they are in high places, such as the business world. I'm talking about football players, basketball players, those type of people. You're looking at business owners in the corporate America. And the worst time for a child to get snatched, I mean, the biggest time, I'll say that, it's a bad time all the time. But the biggest thing that was brought to my attention is football season. When there is a Super Bowl, there's a big list that goes out privately to those people that are in that arena that wants a child or a young adult. And there's a checkoff list, like a menu. If they want them short, tall, long hair, short hair, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, it's a checkoff list. And at that time, during the season with this Super Bowl, they are brought to these hotels back to back as long as these people are here in that area, whatever area they're in, I'll say. And it's horrible. These children don't know they're trustworthy with them, because here it is, these predators are buying shoes for them, clothing, jewelry. If you need an iPhone, I'll provide that for you. If you need marijuana, you can come to my house. I'll make sure you get that. If you need alcohol, no problem. And then once you get there, they have the camera set up in the house and they're hugging on you. And then they move to feeling on you and touching you. And then they threaten them that if they tell anyone, they will expose them to their families, and their families will disown them. That's always the catch.
You've just basically that you just completely shocked me there. Just go back a little bit. There was a tell me if I'm wrong here. You've just described a child to order list. Is that right? About
Yes.
football.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, all right, okay, all right. I'll just get myself together. In your experience, you know what? I've seen a few films on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I should have made a list of. There was a couple of directors making some films about child trafficking, and it was a ridiculous figure. Thousands of children a month going missing and things like that. And I thought, maybe I'll ask Michelle. No, probably not. But you've kind of brought this up.
No, go ahead.
Absolutely. It's really, really terrible that you've said that. There's a child to order list. So are you talking like around the football season, the fans that are coming to the sports stadiums, like a pizza and a beer, and they'll pick up a child? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh my good God, really?
Yeah.
Do you know, I've seen in Britain and America, I think there was the Colorado Ped Patrol. I try to get them on the show as well. It's a massive rise in guys and gals, but mainly guys trying to get hold of young children. They get caught and they'll always say, we just wanted to hang out. It's obvious what they wanted to get. And I think, is it the internet that's brought this out? Has it always been this bad? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's complete, pure evil. There's no other way to describe it. So I'm just going to calm the hell down and ask you, is it the internet that's making this worse, or has it always been this bad?
So, Ellie,
sorry, I was just shocked. I was just completely shocked, because I had a few questions for you. I sent you the questions, and I know that you've been through so much trauma, and then you've just hit it out of the park by saying that to me. I thought, oh, good grief, really? That is completely wicked. Not you.
Uh-huh.
But you're just telling me like it's a big tree, like this big bucket of ice water, and threw it over me and said, there. No, that's what it's like. That's not good. I'm going to mute my mic again, and you just, because I just think this is pure, unadulterated wickedness. And I just wish for the life of me, I wish I had those names of those two directors that have been talking about this, these children, thousands of children in America alone that are in the system, and they cannot be found. And allegedly they are sold to big business, or at least executives, to well-known celebrities, again, allegedly. And some of them never come back out again.
Yeah.
That's just not good. You carry on, because I'm in shock at the moment.
So that is true. They are just, like I said, it's just like having a menu, check-off list of what you want that night. And the prices are very high. They are very high. It's easy to take a child, and you ask the question, if this was as bad as it is now. I'm quite sure that it was pretty horrible and quite terrifying at the time that I grew up. But now I really feel, and to me, I'm not sure of any high statistics across the world, but to me, I feel that with social media and our children being so naive and wanting and desiring to have that friendship, that it's 1,000 times worse. Easy access. Easy.
Well,
access.
I found my questions that I had for Colorado Ped Patrol. Unfortunately, they couldn't come back on the show, but the one that I was talking about, so I'll read the question. I mean, you can answer this, but I saw a documentary recently called These Little Ones, researched and directed by Matthew Miller and Nicholas Stumphauser. You know, and I recommend people to watch this. Long story short, but it was about the huge rise in child abductions across America, 83,000 a month. Now, that is a figure from the documentary. Very, very alarming, if accurate. Most of these are allegedly in the name of satanic abuse. Have you seen the film or wish to comment on this particular worrying trend? Now, that was the question that I had for Colorado Ped Patrol. And I looked at the film and I looked at other sources trying to see if this figure is accurate. And I can't really get a lower figure than that. But that's a hell of an amount of people. 83,000 a month. I mean, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. I didn't know that number was so high. It's just,
well, if it's accurate, I mean, that's called, maybe you want to get a pen. It's called These Little Ones, and it's a documentary. It's not great. It just seems to me there's a massive rise in pedophilia. There's no other way to say it. And
right.
It's purely demonic. I mean, we're here to protect the children, to guide the children. But when you see some of these horrible lowlifes that they've caught out on the street and they're there to meet children, they are wicked, wicked people. Wicked people.
They are. They're very wicked. I mean, you have that person that's on drugs horribly bad and they don't have the money, so they give the child in the place of the money.
And what's the sort of what's the sort of punishment that fits the crime in America or the state that you're in? I'm going to guess that it isn't equal at all. But just what's the sort of punishment these people are getting if they're caught?
If they are caught, yes, they will receive a sentence of time, but they're coming back out. They're going to come back out. And if they didn't receive counseling while they were in the prison system, they're going to come back out and do the same thing. And they're probably send them, I'm only guessing that they'll probably do maybe 5 to 10 years, depending on how many children was involved, how long it took place. I don't recall anyone receiving a life sentence because of it. It's just horrible. You ruined a large portion of a child's life. You get to go and you sit in a facility where you can eat for free, where we're paying for it, and you are able to roam about. And most of the time, the prisons, they don't provide counseling, not the way I feel they should. They should be deep counseling. And my husband always says, line them up and just shoot them in the head. Just line them up. I mean, it's horrible.
No, well, yeah, I get what your husband says. I think that's a natural reaction.
Yeah.
That's a natural reaction. I completely don't get this. And it's a very worrying trend. If it's up on the rise, which you're telling me that in your opinion it probably is. Why do you think that is? I mean, if you knew for sure, you may be able to stop it. But why do you think that is?
Again, it's back to the attention. They are looking for attention. Those children are looking for attention, and as I stated earlier, with those predators and those abusers, they have something within them. Each person has something within them that if they look back at their lives and ask themselves about their childhood, what happened, and then as they start recollecting collecting in their mind about what happened from childhood to adulthood in their life, each person will find that there is an area in their life that they just thought life sucked. And they lashed out, whether it was alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, sex, whatever. It was a time that it happened. But on this, when it gets to the point where you are wanting to fondle a 3-year-old, there's mental issues there. That's up in the high part of the elevator. You're on the 10th level, and you really have some bad issues going on within yourself. There was a woman that actually had children of her own. She did not molest them, but she molested others. Her children were taken from her and put in the custody of the dad, and she could never see the children for the rest of her life. She could never be around children for the rest of her life. So, and that happened to her because she was molested as a child.
Well, that's how can I best put this? That is very sad for the children, but I'm glad that she's not around children. I mean, is it a sure thing that the abused become an abuser? I mean, is it higher than likely?
It is higher than likely. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Really? Because it seems to me that it's if somebody's insane and they're harming children, that's unforgivable. Absolutely, 100%. But it seems like a mass. It's almost like a disease.
Yes.
I just think there's more behind it than people just taking advantage of. Because a child is a child. They are. You at 14, you were a child. You weren't a young adult. I know there are young adults. A lot of children think they're adults, but they're not. They're not. They haven't paid tax. They haven't had a job. They're not. They're still children, and they shouldn't rush headlong into adulthood. Click clack around in mummy's shoes, smoke dad's cigarettes, and think they're the little man or the little woman. They're not. They're children, and it's a sacred time. But for adults to suddenly take advantage of that, it is a mass psychosis. And I've again referring back to that film, they do say it's on a satanic level. I'm not a religious man. But I am a man. But I am a man with faith. That's a huge difference, right? I know there's something bigger than me. I'm all about the powers of goodness and stomping evil into the floor and spitting in its eye as well, just for the trouble of it. But it's almost like a mass psychosis induced by I don't know, Satanism or something like that. I mean, if you're telling me that you could, or you've heard the rumors of ordering children on match or game day, that's horrible. Absolutely horrible, disgusting. So let's say that you held the reins of influence within the halls of government of the United States. Everything you suggest comes to pass. My question is, what would you do with that kind of power? Take this down any rabbit hole. I know it's a big one, but you go for it.
Oh my goodness, I can just see. They're telling me I can do whatever with that power. So if I have the power, those that actually committed the crime, I probably would have whatever. In males, their penises would be cut off. They would have to have that done. And in females, they probably would have to go through the course of having their tubes tied, never to have children again. And it will have to be an order for that. It will have to be an order, not once, not twice. No, the first time that it happened, you're done. And if it continues, let's say someone got away with it, and I found out about it in that country, that state, that city, I would make sure I would have a meeting with all those that in higher power to let them know that I'm serious. If I was Joe Biden, I promise you there would be a law passed that our young people would sit at the top of the banner and not all these other things that the world is concerned about. I our youth and our children are the most important thing to me because they are our future. And our future is in shaky grounds right now.
You're absolutely right there. You're absolutely right. The law and justice, I don't know about America, but in the UK, the law and justice no longer walk hand in hand. And so let me ask you this. So you're talking about the removal of the offender's penis. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Blunt, rusty knife. Yeah, totally. So if somebody had, you look at some of these videos, if somebody said, "Oh, it was a mistake. I thought she or he was like 18," would you go? I mean, I personally wouldn't, but would you go gently with them, or would you hold up their terrible, terrifying punishment as a flag to all, as a warning to all, or would you let them walk with a slap on the wrist just this first time?
No, I probably would sentence them to jail for some period of time where they will have to go and then receive counseling if it was found that they truly are honest about that. Now, I would say, listen, you're going to still spend some time because you should have never even wanted to approach. I mean, you really thought the child was 18. Did you do any background check? I would make sure that there's a thorough investigation. And if not, then they would spend some time in prison with counseling. And then go from there. If counsel says they're doing better and they need to come out and they still need to get some counseling, maybe for a year after they get out, okay. But they're on the list. They're on the list. So if anything happens, they have those that are, what are they? Those that are offensive to the United States, if they're on this list. I can't think of the name now.
Like the sex offenders list.
Yeah, the sex offenders list. They would be on that list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just think that society as a whole is far too lenient. Now I know you're forgiving. That's your thing personally with your uncles. That's your thing. I admire you for it, 100%. But I just think society is far too lenient. That's why I said the law and justice in this country don't walk hand in hand. They're estranged from each other. They're divorced. They hardly talk because I think these people that do things like this and other heinous crimes should have wickedness visited upon them threefold. And I mean, completely, even hearing about what happened to them would terrify the average good law-abiding citizen and completely terrify those who thought they were just curious. You know, I mean, the world has gone completely, I know it's like in the States, but here it's gone bonkers, you know, people not knowing what the hell they are. Yeah. So I just think they just need to slap around the face, say, this is good and this is bad. If you cross the line, there is no grey area here. This is what's going to happen to you.
It should be some type of punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's get back to counselling the young people and the children that you counsel. Tell me about the successes. Tell me, because I know you do definitely have mostly, well, probably all, but mostly successes. They come into, obviously they're a lot of them in very confused states. Tell me about some of the successes. You don't have to mention names, what they've gone on to do, where they've gone, what they've accomplished.
So beautiful. So many. Oh my God. There was this young lady that came to me. She was 17 years old and we talked. She received counseling. The parent that actually it was a stepfather that molested this young child. She was young at that time. She's 17, but when it happened to her, she was 8 years old. And she didn't tell anyone. And when she talked with me, she just felt so comfortable. She talked with the counselor and the counselor let her know that, hey, we need to have him put it out there about, your stepfather. And when that happened, of course, mom was upset. She couldn't understand why her daughter didn't tell her. But the conversation went on and they were able to get the counseling that they needed. She divorced him and he did get in some trouble. But this young lady now, she is, I want to say she's about ready to graduate from college. She calls me every now and then and let me know what she's doing. And she of course, the genuine thank yous come out, and you can hear the tear. You can hear her crying, and she's not crying anymore about sadness. She's crying because she's happy. She feels good. And it makes my heart happy to hear that. So many stories in regards to these young people. A lot of times they want to come back and just share their stories with those that are behind them. Let them know that I have a great program, and they let them know that she's for real. She really does care. It's not about money. It's not about popularity. And when they say that, I'm just like, you know what? I feel satisfied within myself that I took the time out and recognized them, and they were able to move forward in life. And some say thank you. Sometimes I get the thank you. I don't hear from all of them, but the ones that I hear from, I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that they have moved forward in their lives. It just makes me happy.
I should have asked you this before, is there a particular type of social background these children and young adults come from? Or are they from all walks of life, privileged and underprivileged?
They're coming from all walks of life, all of them. Majority is through those that have poverty. But going into the schools and talking with them in various schools, I found that it's all over. It's not just the poverty portion of it. That you would think so. Oh, that's on that end, but it's not. Oh my God, it's really not. It's not. It's not. All walks of life. Mm-hmm.
And the counsellors that give their time, and I'm guessing freely here, are they themselves former victims? And the people that have gone through your that help, do they come back maybe and offer their advice, talk to fellow victims or survivors themselves?
Yes, they do. They do. The social workers that help them, sometimes they are with them. Sometimes they work. The counselors that work with them, they have been through the training process and know about the sensitivity of that. Not all of them have went through the sexual abuse, but they have that passion, the same thing that I have, that I found when I talk with them, to see the success in them. It's not always about the sexual abuse. There's other abuses that take place. And so the counselors can relate on some levels in regards to the abuse. And then you do have those that come back and want to talk with them and share their story of how they have made it out of that darkness into the light and where they are currently now, and they encourage them to let them know that it's only time because of the situation that they went through, and now they're going through unbreakable faith, and where we are now. They let them know you're in the right place. You're on the path to success and healing.
Before we wrap up, I'd like you to give us some, or those who are listening that maybe need some help, some words of encouragement, some words of inspiration.
I would encourage anyone that's listening to this now, please get some help. Do not allow your conscience to tell you that it's going to get better. Don't allow your conscience to tell you that it's embarrassing or any of the negativism. Think of the positive. You want to move forward. It's just like losing weight. If you want to lose the weight, you're going to put forth the effort. It's going to be harder because it's a mental situation. Some are dealing with the physical, if it was very abusive with the dating violence. But sexual violence, you need to start the step today. If they want to get help, you need to get the help. You can call 1-800-656-HOPE or 4673. And that is the company that open 24/7 that help those who have dealt with sexual assault. It's so important to get the help that you need today. Don't wait. There are so many things that are planned for you that you can do. to move forward in life. But you have to deal with this. We get uncomfortable dealing with those things that going into a different direction. We get so comfortable where we are. To move out of that comfortability, we start to feel very strange and different. But it's okay. It's good. That's a good thing, because that means that you're on the right track.
That's us at the top of the hour, and I've really enjoyed our conversation today, Michelle. Before we wrap up, tell us where we could learn more about Unbreakable Faith and how we can help.
Well, you can definitely visit my website, and I am on Instagram as well, Facebook, and you can find me at U as in unicorn, N as in Nancy, B as in Bob, F as in Frank, T as in Tom, H as in Harry.com. That's my website. You can look it up on Facebook and all of Instagram. I'm there. I'm all out there. How can you help? Tell it. If you know something, tell someone about it. Don't say that that's their business. I don't want to get in their business. No, get in their business. If you know that there's domestic violence, there's sexual trauma, please stop it. If you can, let them know that there is help. And you can call that 1-800-656-HOPE or 4673 and talk with someone so that they can walk you through the steps of getting the help for that individual. You can definitely reach out to me. My number is 980-498-7297. And I'm saying it slow because I would love to hear from you. 980-498-7297. You can reach out to me. And if you would like to donate, you can donate on my website, because I do need help. I always need help with supplies. We play games and everything. We go out to eat, and yes, so you can definitely donate.
Michelle Dewitt, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And that was the Michelle Dewitt interview. I've had to think very carefully about this outro, as the content of our interview was really quite concerning, especially when this revelation was put out.
They have a list that they go by. Some predators, they are in high places, such as the business world. I'm talking about football players, basketball players, those type of people. You're looking at business owners in the corporate America.
A list for ordering children like they were takeaway item. That is completely shocking. As I previously mentioned, I've watched the film These Little Ones by Stu Peters and Nicholas Stumphauser. Its content a massive cause for concern. I'd recommend to my listeners watching this documentary for no other reason than to realise that there is an epidemic of paedophilia that is sweeping the world, and a massive part of it is fueled by, in my opinion, occult motivation. Innocence is under attack. Morality is under attack. Common sense is lacking. And alas, as I've said it before, and I will say it again, the law and justice seem to be greatly separated. They no longer walk hand in hand. In my opinion, after fair and lawful due process, if the perpetrator or perpetrators is found guilty of paedophilia, then a punishment of terrifying equality to that most wicked act must be meted out. A punishment so terrible that to even consider its implication would send a cold, deterring shiver, as it must, into the soul. Again, my thanks to Michelle for her time today that she gave us, and for the time you've also given my dear listeners attending this cast. Click on the link below to see Michelle's website and to buy a copy of her book. Remembering, of course, that you can find it on Amazon also. I know this show subject material has been very dark in its nature, but we must face this crisis and eradicate it from our society, wherever it is found, and let those who would seek such depravity, regardless of station in life, know that it is not acceptable, there is no excuse, and nowhere to hide. You can find the Simon Laurie King podcast on all the usual platforms, as well as Facebook and YouTube. If you enjoyed the show, give us a like or leave a comment below. Subscribe also, if you'd be so kind, or send the show an email, the slkpodcast@gmail.com. But either way, please keep them kind. And so, my friends, it's time for me to go. Until next time, stay safe, be happy, and certainly not afraid. Bye.
Slick Podcast. Keeping it real and always keeping it groovy.